Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. The rise in geopolitical tensions has positioned the semiconductor industry as a crucial strategic sector globally. According to a survey conducted by the Doha Ilbo in collaboration with the Industrial Research Institute, from 2021 to 2023, the total investment in semiconductor manufacturing equipment by the United States, Japan, Europe, and Taiwan has reached approximately about $552 billion. These investments are expected to be completed around 2030. The United States has attracted over $325.6 billion in semiconductor investments, leading with an overwhelming advantage. Europe follows with $88.4 billion. Japan ranks third with $72.3 billion, and Taiwan closely follows with $66.1 billion. How will these massive investments reshape the global technological landscape and power dynamics? Joining us today are Konrad Young, former TSMC R&D Director at LeadAgileX Accelerator founding partner, and Kristy Tsun Tzu Hsu, ASEAN Studies Center Director, Chung-Hua Institution for Economic Research, Taiwan. A warm welcome to both of you on the show.
Thank you.
Earlier this year, South Korea announced an investment of $470 billion to build the world's largest semiconductor cluster. Now they have announced an additional $19 billion investment to compete fiercely in a global chip race. So let's start with today's conversation. We are talking about South Korea. What's your perspective on South Korea's urgent efforts in the semiconductor industry? And in terms of the strategy, do you think that South Korea is lagging behind the United States, Japan, and Taiwan in this field? Professor.
I think South Korea has been traditional so-called IDM strategy. They have their own product, they make a manufacturing, they do a design all together with a major big company like Samsung, SK Hynix. So Korea hasn't been able to create a so-called fabulous foundry infrastructure, at least domestically. Samsung has attracted a few major customers, try to have a second source from TSMC. It has done a reasonable job, but it hasn't been grow as much as whatever TSMC has been doing. It's ranked number 2 in foundry business. However, they don't have their domestic kind of ecosystem, at least in design system. Major company, major customer from Samsung are still U.S. company per se. So I think this investment is trying to build their domestic ecosystem, at least from design point of view. But I think it's still not very easy because the fabless right now is still dominated by U.S. And then manufacturing foundry is still dominated by TSMC. So Korea tried to build an entire infrastructure domestically to take over the U.S.-Taiwan kind of competition. It will take a long time, and also because the market is still over the world. So it's not just Korea as a market can help that industry to grow. So I think they will have I consider they will probably have some minor success, but overall speaking, I don't think they can still compete with today's world-class kind of collaboration and the ecosystem.
So thank you. Director Hsu, do you agree with what Professor Young said?
Yeah, I of course agree with Professor Young in describing Korea's strength in semiconductor supply chain. However, I don't think that Koreans' final goal is to replace the US or Taiwan, because currently there are some backgrounds for Korea's government to adopt this very ambitious program. The first is since the US-China rivalry, especially for this tech war and also for the export control. South Korean companies have been the ones, same as Taiwan, most negatively impacted by all this program. And therefore, South Korea sees the strategic importance of semiconductor with all these major governments, including Japan, EU, US, putting all these very strong sensitive programs, especially with very generous subsidy. And therefore, the US, the South Korea has to do something to encourage its industry and showing that they really care for this industry. And secondly, it's more about domestic politics. Last month, the ruling party just suffered a defeat from its general election to its main opposition party. And therefore, there being discussion and suspicion in South Korea that whether the current government is going to continue its support under this so-called Korean's version of CHIP Act. And therefore, the government has to continuously showing strong support for this industry. So that is the second background. The third background is, of course, this very intensive international competition. I don't think that Korea's target is for U.S. or for Taiwan because it's either more complementarity or it's two different way of business. I think its target is more about China and Japan because they now see Japan coming up for this semiconductor supply chain, of course, with TSMC's help, etc. And therefore, in Korea, they call this rejuvenation of Japan's semiconductor supply chain, which really brings a lot of threats to Korean industry. And secondly, they also see China, though still much lagging behind now, probably will become the most important player dominating the legacy chips in 10 years from now. So I think that the current programs and policy adopted by the government mostly target at Japan as well as China.
So if we take a step back, you can see many countries in the world are actively developing their own semiconductor industry, with the United States taking the lead with $300 billion of investment, and Japan and Europe are following closely. And Taiwan, of course, we try very hard. Do you think that the U.S. will continue to maintain its leading position in terms of the investment in the semiconductor field? And do you think that Taiwan will have a chance to catch up? Maybe we start with Director Hsu.
Yeah, we do see Biden administration from time to time release very beautiful figures saying how many investment they have attracted. But I think there definitely will be a gap between the amount of investment committed and the amount of investment realized, because we do see some projects have already undertaken their project, for example, building fabs already, but some projects are still in a much slow pace. And therefore, we don't know how many of these projects will 100% realize, and we don't know when or whether Biden administration is going to realize its dream of making U.S. great again in terms of producing more chips on American soil. Having said that, you asked about Taiwan and U.S. relations in this regard. I also don't think Taiwan and U.S. are in a more competitive position. Actually, they are much more collaborative or more complementary, because U.S. provides Taiwan design, materials, and also equipment, as well as it's the largest market for Taiwan. And therefore, Taiwan will never be able to find any other market that will be replacing the U.S. market. And therefore, it's much more collaborative, as well as complementary. But Taiwan will definitely have to rely much more on the U.S. And people here are a bit concerned that after TSMC, for example, complete its fab in the U.S., whether that will reduce U.S. dependence on Taiwan. I don't think that will be the answer, because even TSMC will have successfully completed its 3 fabs, for example, and the U.S. will still continue to buy chips directly from Taiwan, because what TSMC is going to produce in the U.S. will only satisfy a small portion of what they need. And therefore, the U.S.-Taiwan collaboration between the U.S. and here Taiwan, I think they will continue and will be as strong as ever.
Professor Young, what's your take on this?
Well, I basically agree with Director Hsu's comment. As a collaborative relationship between Taiwan and U.S. U.S. Definitely has a lot of money. They print cash all the time. So I'm not too worried about whether they will invest more. I think today's Taiwan's production in U.S. I consider is more or less as risk management activity, not a complete replacement activity. There's no way they can replace the current Taiwan's production capacity, for example, even with additional investment. So, but it definitely will give the U.S. government a safe consideration just in case something happen or the risk happening, especially from China. So at least they have a safety net to maintain the basic supply in U.S. production at least from TSMC or from other company. So that itself, I consider is more or less a risk management activity today. Whether U.S. can take over as a world manufacturing site in the long run, I have a strong doubt about it. I think we mentioned that a lot because of culture, because of a lot of reasons. But keep U.S. with the safe net, I think is also helpful for the world in terms of make the war has less chance to go to the war, for example. So I consider all these investment are good things. The only concern I have is the overcapacity issue. Okay. Today, in terms of the mature technology, of course, China right now built out a lot of capacity. So we foresee this will happen. In terms of advanced technologies, so far we haven't seen yet because of the hype of AI, at least from NVIDIA and many companies. But when you build capacity in this way, just in case something happens, the capacity might have some problem. But for the short term, I don't think there's an issue. But the long term, it might create certain kind of issue for this the oversupply issue. In case the AI application, the business model cannot maintain that its growth as fast as today. Yeah.
You talk about a very important point, Professor. You talk about the complementary relationship and collaboration between Taiwan and the U.S. and also the issue of overcapacity. So I want to ask Director Hsu, what do you think of the issue of overcapacity? Is it really happening? Or do you think that, well, different market, they produce different chips, so each of them still have the advantage?
I think it's clear to Taiwan that why TSMC enjoy such benefits, while, for example, Samsung and SK Hynix last year suffered a deficit, which is very, very rare from their business history. I think because Samsung focused more recent years on advanced chip, which is now and for the next 5 to 10 years will still be in much demand over in the world. However, for the legacy chip, as Professor Young just mentioned, we predict that there will be more than 50 fabs to be constructed or to be completed in the next few years, because every country right now wants to be a player in this regard, and they all have to come. With this legacy chip. So the overcapacity issue is already there, and that's the reason that some companies are suffering already from that. However, for advanced chip fabrication, legacy chip fabrication, there now is the discussion of the capacity for advanced test and packaging, which is right now in very much demand. And Taiwanese companies have already realized that kind of business potential, but that's not something else that the other companies or other countries can do. So different markets will have different development, but Taiwan is very lucky to enjoy the part of the market that is going to be needed in the next decade.
Great to hear that. According to a report by CEO Score, a Korean business research institute, Taiwan's semiconductor industry has experienced rapid growth over the past decade, while South Korea has stagnated. This is particularly evident in the development of TSMC and Samsung Electronics. Although Samsung Electronics led TSMC in profits until 2021, TSMC has overtaken Samsung since 2022. What will be the development and the implications for the future of the semiconductor industry in both of these countries? So talking about a competition between TSMC and also Samsung Electronics, what will be the main reason for TSMC to surpass Samsung in 2022? Professor.
Samsung and TSMC are in a very, very different business model. I think earlier as I mentioned, one is more or less the system IDM company's view. And TSMC provide a platform for everybody to use. Basically, TSMC's platform is for every company who are innovative enough to create their own business. For the past few years, AI is the dominant growth among everything. So TSMC enjoy that growth of AI, especially from NVIDIA and so on. But Samsung is very different. Samsung pretty much don't have much NVIDIA's business. They only help recently because of this high bandwidth DRAM. But it's very interesting. High bandwidth DRAM benefit SK Hynix a little bit more than Samsung, partially because Samsung is in a competition mode with TSMC, for example, because SK Hynix has no competition with TSMC. So definitely for foundry fabless viewpoint, they will try to help SK Hynix more than just Samsung. So it's very, very complicated situation. A lot of ecosystem, a lot of business model will make these two companies grow differently. Samsung has grown very rapidly because of their IDM, because of their memory business. Every year when memory is good, Samsung Overtake took the Intel as number one. But the other year when memory is not good, Intel becomes number one. They have been alternate both for a while, but until recently, because of this AI hype, so TSMC kind of jump up as the number one semiconductor company in the world. So this will continue to happen for a while at least. But good thing about TSMC is if any company, like for example, the mobile business getting worse, so maybe Apple wasn't as good as before, but there's always another company come out with a new application. They are still TSMC's customer. So TSMC can enjoy the growth with alternate customer as they grow.
So growing together with the clients is critically important, and even the analyst from Bloomberg also mentioned that if there's no TSMC, there will be no growth for NVIDIA or Apple. So Director Hsu, my question for you. TSMC has announced that this year they're going to build 7 plants, with 5 of them in Taiwan and 2 overseas. How do you see the overall deployment of TSMC?
Yeah, I think TSMC has on the one hand, increases capacity in the country, so as to serve all these new orders from these clients for all these different kind of application, especially for AI and also this new emerging sector. And on the other hand, among the 7 factories or 7 fab, 1 in Japan, 1 in the U.S., and 1 in Germany. This means the TSMC now is going globalized to this more advanced country or G7 country. And therefore, by doing this, they can secure their international market. So by producing chips directly from their domestic operation, and in this regard, they can better secure the international market while expanding to other international market directly from producing their chips here in Taiwan. So I think TSMC is making a very much much balanced strategy, not only to take care of its domestic capacity for all these existing and new clients, but also serve companies and clients in these three countries. After all, Japan, US, and Germany, including the whole European Union country, are one of these most important markets for TSMC.
So going back to the, say, competition between TSMC and Samsung, Samsung just announced that it's going to challenge TSMC in terms of the 2-nanometer process and aims to take over TSMC's position within 5 years. Do you think that's feasible, Professor Young?
I think it's very difficult. TSMC's advanced technology is just not a technology per se, because they co-develop the technology with customer. Or the customer we know, they in TSMC R&D phase, they tape out some prototype product to TSMC, and TSMC, when they develop technology, they want to ensure that prototype product has a high yield, and they have time to learn it. Similar situation. This leading user for advanced technology like 3 nanometer, 2 nanometer, their experience with Samsung was not that good. There are certain reasons for that. Partially, also Samsung has its own product. One of the natural disadvantages for Samsung is they are also their customers' competitor in a lot of sense, because Samsung is capable of making a product and sell it by their product. So their past experience was not good. It's not just a technology. Just look at it from technology point of view. It has a lot of collaboration, a lot of yield improvement activity going on. I would say just on the track record, we haven't seen Samsung be able to do that. Not because they don't have a technology. They do have a technology. They can probably make their own product reasonable well. But when they work with the customer, external customer, they haven't been very successful at that.
So now let's shift our focus to the Chinese market. China has been actively developing the semiconductor industry as well, and its leading semiconductor company, SMIC, just announced their performance, which reached 20% of growth year on year, and it ranked third among global semiconductor foundries, only behind TSMC and Samsung. But its profit has plummeted by about 69%. So overall, how do you see the development of the Chinese chips market? What's your view, Director Hsu?
I think for China, responding to all this series of tech wars or export control and also other sanctions by the U.S. and together with some other countries, including Japan and Netherlands, not to provide them with the equipment. And China has already undergone a series of reform among its own industry. And it targeted the legacy chips. And therefore, I think there being a lot of increasingly number of reports suggesting that China is going to be a major player in legacy chip, which I think Korean really take it seriously. That's why South Korean government has put up all these new measures with the aim to avoid directly competition with China and also to enhance South Korea's capacity in that regard. I think China is going to continue with their performance, better improved performance in legacy chip. But as for advanced chip, I don't think it's going to produce any significant progress in the next years.
So talking about the advanced chips, the United States, because of its CHIPS Act, has made the big decision, or they made the announcement that they would like to produce about 30% of the world's most advanced chips by 2032. And on the other hand, China can only account for 2% in that area. Professor, what do you think about this competition between the U.S. and China? Do you think that China will have a greater chance to catch up, or the U.S. will really achieve the goal that is set?
Well, at this time, it seems clear U.S. sanction to advance equipment material to and all the ecosystem to China has forbid China to grow in this advanced technology, advanced chips. So it will be a while. I think definitely China is trying to create their own ecosystem, their own equipment, their own material, but it's not that easy because all this industry will, all this kind of upstream equipment and the material take a long time, take a while. It's not easy to quickly catch up. And also another thing I want to mention, the reason why the legacy chips could, if you invest to the legacy chips, you still need to do a depreciation, but chip price in general are very low. That's why TSMC doesn't invest much of legacy chips, because they use the existing equipment, basically zero cost equipment, to print the money from the legacy chips. So they have a good margin. They even have a good margin for legacy chip. But for SMIC, for any country, even including Samsung, if they want to invest, they have to buy a new equipment, and that new equipment, that depreciation, at least during that period of time, is going to plunge the profit margin for that. So spending to the legacy chip will not help you your margin at all. Yeah. So and that's why TSMC's investment majority is in the advanced one, because you can get more money. But they do have some investment, so-called a little bit legacy one in Japan and in Europe, but they share the cost for that. And majority is coming from the Japanese company or government support or Germany support. So it's a little bit different from just invest by yourself and then try to get a margin for that. So, and I think it would be much better strategy for TSMC to work with other countries to build the fab. If it's just by TSMC itself, I don't think TSMC would like to do it at all. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your insights. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
If you like our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.